Okay, let's jump right into this explainer and dismantle a pretty dangerous illusion. There's this idea that hitting a massive multi-million-dollar net worth basically guarantees your financial security. Well, we're going to look at the very real, honestly, cinematic stakes of early retirement here in the US, because the plot twists waiting for you are completely hidden from your typical online savings calculator.
So take Denise and Patrick. They're both 52, and on a random Tuesday, they officially hit $2.4 million in net worth. After 26 years of maxing out their 401ks, Patrick prints out a spreadsheet, Denise sticks it to the fridge under a lobster magnet, and the bottom line says they can safely spend $96,000 a year forever. They thought they'd made it, right? But then, literally 3 weeks after Patrick hands in his badge, a health insurance quote shows up in the mail. $2,100 a month, and that single piece of paper completely shattered their reality.
Section 1. The illusion of enough, when the rules apply to your income, not your net worth.
Now, $2.4 million puts you in the top 10% of your age group. But out here in the wild, the traps don't actually check your bank balance. They only check your tax return. Let's look at the famous 4% rule. That rule comes from a 1994 paper, and it was strictly built for a 30-year retirement, assuming you clock out at 65. But a 52-year-old like Patrick, he's facing a 45-year horizon. When you stretch the timeline out like that, you actually have to drop your safe withdrawal rate to 3.5%. The math simply changes when you retire early.
For Denise and Patrick, that simple mathematical haircut instantly vaporizes $12,000 every single year. It takes their projected $96,000 down to $84,000 before they even get started. You know, you didn't spend that 12 grand, you didn't lose it in a market crash, it just vanished because of an assumption buried in a 1994 research paper.
And this brilliantly illustrates sequence of returns risk. Imagine retiring back in 1966. Over the next 30 years, you got a fantastic average return of 9.5%. Awesome, right? Except you still went broke. Why? Because the first 15 years were totally flat while inflation ran at 6%. Every withdrawal you made meant selling off depressed shares just to buy groceries. So when the market finally bounced back in 1982, your portfolio didn't. Those shares were long gone, liquidated to pay the heating bill.
And this matters a lot right now. The Shiller-Cape ratio, which basically measures stock prices against earnings, recently hit 41. To put that in perspective, the historical median is just 17. Now, while that doesn't mean a crash is definitely happening tomorrow, it heavily predicts weak real returns for the following decade. And a weak decade right at the start of your retirement, that's the exact trap that quietly seals an early retiree's fate.
Section 2. The Healthcare Subsidy Cliff. Navigating the 13-year gap before Medicare.
With 2026 marking the end of enhanced premium tax credits, the old terrifying trapdoor is back. And a cliff is terrifying because it is not a tax bracket. Think of a tax bracket like a toll booth, right? It just takes a slightly bigger slice of your next dollar. But a cliff, that acts as a trapdoor. If you make even one single dollar over 400% of the federal poverty level, your premium subsidy doesn't just shrink a little bit. It goes straight to zero, instantly.
Data from the Kaiser Family Foundation reveals a pretty brutal reality here. A 60-year-old making $62,000 pays about $515 a month. But if they earn just $2,000 more, their premium completely skyrockets to over $1,200 a month. Think about that. They earn $2 grand more, but they paid over $8,000 extra for the exact same health plan.
Let's walk Denise and Patrick's money down the stairs for a second. We start at $84,000 from our adjusted horizon math. Boom, we lose $25,000 to the health insurance cliff. Boom, we drop another $11,000 on property tax and home insurance. And then, of course, we still have to pay federal taxes.
So you're left with this number, $42,000. A $2.4 million market portfolio realistically leaves you with just $42 grand that you can actually hand to a cashier to live your life. That's literally the exact take-home pay of a household earning $55,000 a year. You spent 26 years saving millions just to perform poverty on paper.
Section 3. The Power of Magi. The invisible bomb in your tax strategy. Let's see how standard retirement tax advice can actually detonate your plans. Here's the trap. Every single dollar you convert to a Roth and every dollar of capital gains you harvest tax-free counts as income. So doing all these quote-unquote smart tax moves simultaneously blows up your health subsidy by pushing you right over that cliff we just talked about. Oh, and it triggers Medicare surcharges 2 years later when you hit 65. You're basically standing on a financial twister mat where every single circle is on fire. So what is the one invisible metric that controls all of this? What's the one number that actually decides your fate?
It's your MAGI, your modified adjusted gross income. This is the income you choose to show on paper every single year. It is absolutely the most important variable in your retirement that the stock market cannot touch, and honestly, it's the only one you can truly control. It sets your health premiums, your Medicare surcharges, your capital gains rates, and your tax brackets. It's the whole shebang.
Section 4. Escaping the retirement trap. Changing the rules to survive.
Because the biggest risk for affluent retirees actually isn't running out of money, it's dying with it, because you were just too terrified to spend it. You escape the trap by dumping those rigid, fixed withdrawals and adopting flexible guardrails. You trim spending when the market drops, and you take a bit more when it runs hot. You also have to plan for the retirement spending smile, which means acknowledging your actual spending declines as you age before spiking at the very end. And crucially, do what Denise's friend Sonia did. She got a long-term care policy at 46 when it was super cheap, neutralizing a massive future risk.
Because let's be real, you have to plan for the unbudgeted realities. 70% of us are going to need long-term care. That runs about $127,000 a year, and Medicare completely excludes it. On top of that, half of American parents heavily subsidize their adult children to the tune of like $1,400 a month. Add to that the fact that retiring early guts your Social Security average right as the trust fund faces a 2033 cliff where benefits could literally drop to 77%.
So how did Denise and Patrick survive this absolute gauntlet? They took their eyes off their net worth headline. Instead, they meticulously targeted a $78,000 MAGI. They chose that exact income on purpose so they'd sit safely under the subsidy cliff, and they backed it up with Patrick picking up just 15 hours a week of consulting. That flexibility let them avoid the traps entirely.
So the final question you really need to ask yourself isn't just how much you need to save. The real question is, at what income will you choose to live, and exactly how much will that one number cost you? Because at the end of the day, the number on your tax return is the one that quietly writes the rest of your life.